Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Very warm greetings to all of you. I am Dr. Raju Maji, Assistant Professor, Faculty of Law, Banaras Hindu University. As we are discussing about law of banking and negotiable instruments, in this series of lecture, now I'll going to discuss with you, that is lecture number 6, and the lecture number 6 is based on the Reserve Bank of India and its function. Now, when we are discussing about this particular chapter, in this chapter, I have divided for better understanding the Reserve Bank of India and its power and functions. But at that time, that when we are talking about the Reserve Bank of India, we will have to see that how the Reserve Bank came into existence and how it is working and what are its objectives and how the power has been conferred by which law. That is very important. So, by keeping all these points, I have divided this lecture in the following heads. The first I will discuss with you, that is the establishment of Reserve Bank of India. The second I will discuss with you, objective of the Reserve Bank of India. Third I will discuss with you, constitution of Central Board of Directors and local boards. And the fourth I will discuss with you, banking business of Reserve Bank of India. And then I will discuss the functions of Reserve Bank of India, and finally I will discuss the powers of Reserve Bank of India. So, in this head we will discuss the Reserve Bank of India. Now, dear students, let me tell you some of the brief introductions about the Reserve Bank of India. As it was begin with the 1923 onwards, that there is a committee which was constituted, that was headed by the Hilton-Young Commission. The Hilton-Young Commission was of the opinion that in every country there is a need of establishment of a central bank. I am not talking about the Central Bank of India, I am talking about the central bank which will function or which will regulate the monetary policy of the country. So, in this perspective, the Hilton-Young Commission's recommended was accepted, and the journey was started for the establishment of Reserve Bank of India. The Reserve Bank of India has been constituted as a corporate body having perpetual succession and a common law seal. Its capital of rupees 5 crore is wholly owned by the Government of India. Now, as I have told you that when it was felt that there is a need of the establishment of a Central Bank of India, then it was felt that what would be the name. So, it was found that with a particular act, there must be established a particular bank which will work as a Central Bank of India. So, with that recommendations, the Hilton-Young recommendations, the Government of India enacted a particular legislation for the purpose of establishment of Central Bank of India in this country. So, the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934 came into existence, and with the help of that act, the specific provisions has been made with the objective as well as that how the Reserve Bank will work, how their management will be done, everything has been given. But before coming to that part, just I would like to mention you that under section 3 when we are talking about, which is talking about the formation of establishment of the Reserve Bank of India. The Reserve Bank of India was established as a corporate body, and as you know, the corporate body means it has its own perpetual successions and it will use a common seal. So, with that objective, the Reserve Bank of India was established under section 3 of the Act. At the same time, when we are reading the section 3, then you will find that the bank to be called the Reserve Bank of India shall be constituted for the purpose of taking over the management of the currency from the central government and of carrying on the business of banking in accordance with the provisions of this Act, which is stated under section 3 of the Act. Let me explain again section 3 of the Act. Now, when we are talking about the banking, as far as concerned, that bank means it has its own objective, it has its own purpose, and the banking means it will do some sort of the business. When he is carrying any kind of the business, naturally there needs a management. So, at the very beginning, it was very much mentioned under the Act itself that what is the purpose of the establishment of the Reserve Bank of India. Now, if you go through the section 3 of the Act, then you will find the two words that the purpose of taking over the management of the currency from the central government and carrying the banking business in accordance with the provisions of this Act. That means, the Reserve Bank was established for the purpose of what? The first purpose was that to taking over the management of the currency from the central government. As we know that with the help of Imperial Bank, as we have already discussed that how the Imperial Bank came into existence, as we know that the 3 presidency banks which we had at that time, these were amalgamated, and by amalgamating that we got the new bank which we called at that time, or which were named the Imperial Bank of India. As you know that the Imperial Bank of India again it was changed its status, and in the year 1955 that the Imperial Bank converted into the State Bank of India. So, that was a very beautiful history which you find as far as concerned that the development of the banking law. At the same time, as I have told you that it was felt that okay, we have the different kind of banking, but what is the requirement as far as concerned to maintain the monetary stability of the country, that is the central bank was felt that the central bank must be there. So, with that objective, the Reserve Bank of India was established in the year 1935. It came into existence in the 1935. Now, as far as concerned that when the bank shall as soon as may be established offices in the Bombay, Calcutta, Delhi, Madras, and may establish branches or agencies in any other place in India with the previous sanctions of the central government. According to section 6 of the Act, it was mentioned that when the Reserve Bank were established, then its branches will be established, and as soon as it was the provisions has been made at that time according to section 6, and it says they establishes offices in the Bombay, Calcutta, Delhi, Madras, and may establish branches or agencies in any other place in India with the previous sanction of the central government elsewhere. So, the provisions is very clear that with the inception of the Reserve Bank of India, the branches will be opened in the Bombay, Calcutta, Delhi, the Madras. At that time, these were the 4 presidency town, and within that presidency town, these 4 offices were established of the Reserve Bank of India, and now we are calling that these are the metropolitan city of this country. Now, the central government from time to time given such directions to the bank as it may, after consultations with the governor of the bank, consider necessary in the public interest. Very important that how the management will be done. As far as concerned that when we are reading the section 3, then we find that the purpose of the establishment of the Reserve Bank of India, that was very clear, that to taking over the management of the currency from the central government. And the second one is that when we will go through the objective, then you will find it is very clearly mentioned that the objective of the Reserve Bank of India is to maintain the monetary stability of the country. Now, further subsection 2 of section 7, which states that subject to any such directions, the general superintendence and directions of the affairs of business of the bank shall be entrusted to the central board of directors, which may exercise all powers and do all acts and things which may be exercised or done by the bank. Now, very importantly, here it is very necessary to discuss as far as the management when we are talking about. What is the assignment is given under this Act to the Reserve Bank of India, or what the objective has been set under the preamble of the Reserve Bank of India Act, that has to be managed. So, by reading section 7 of the Act, it is very clear that there will be a central board of directors, and that the central board of directors is entirely responsible to carry out the affairs of the Reserve Bank of India. And the central government has given wide power under this Act. It is mentioned under subsection 1 of the Act, which again I would like to reiterate before you, that is the central government from time to time given such direction to the bank as it may, after consultations with the governor of the bank, consider necessary in the public interest. That is very important. I would like to give some sort, or you can say a stress on this particular point under the subsection 1 of section 7, and that is with the consultation of the governor of the Reserve Bank of India. That is very important. And why it is very important, as far as my understanding is that there is two institutions, that is the Reserve Bank of India, which has given assignment under the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934, that he has to take care of the monetary stability of the country. The monetary stability of the country is very much concerned with the finance ministry of the country. So, as far as my understanding, that although the powers has been conferred to the Reserve Bank of India, besides that it is very important, if the Reserve Bank wishes to achieve that objective, or the central government, particularly the finance ministry, if they wish to attain the objective which has been set for the betterment of the country, as far as concerned the monetary stability and the development of the bankings and the enrich of the economy of the country, that is very important, that there must be very much cordial, harmonious relationship is required in between these two institutions, that is the Reserve Bank of India one hand, and the other hand, that is the finance ministry of this country. Now, the second point which I would like to share with you, that is the subsection 2 of section 7. It is also very important, as far as concerned, that the management of the affairs of the Reserve Bank of India. Section 7 states that subject to any such directions, the general superintendents and directions of the affairs and business of the bank shall be entrusted to Central Board of Directors, which may exercise all powers and do all acts and things which may be exercised or done by the bank. So, the objective which we have seen under section 3 of the Act, that is the central government, whenever he thinks in the public interest, with the consultation of the governor of the Reserve Bank of India, he will issue directions, and the directions must be followed to of the affairs of and business of the bank shall be entrusted to the Central Board of Directors, which may exercise all powers and do all acts and things which may be exercised or done by the bank. So, entire affairs, we can say, the assignment which is given under this Act, that has to be controlled, that has to be managed under the superintendence of the Central Board of Directors. So, Central Board of Directors played a very significant role as far as concerned to complete the assignment or to achieve the objective of the Reserve Bank of India. Very importantly, it says the save as otherwise provided in regulations made by the Central Board, the governor, and in his absence, the deputy governor nominated by him in his behalf shall also have powers of general superintendence and directions of the affairs and the business of the bank, and may exercise all powers and do all acts and things which may be exercised or done by the bank. Now, the Reserve Bank will not stop its works. If there is any kind of, you can say, if the governor, because the consultations is required with the governor, and suppose the governor is in absence, so the Reserve Bank will not stop its work, its function, it will continue. How? That the governor, if he is not in a position to discharge for a certain region for some time, he can assign the deputy governors, and the deputy governors can exercise all the powers which he is given to the governor. Now, the objective is very important, as I have already stated with you, it is given, but let me allow to read out the preamble of the Reserve Bank of India Act. So, the Reserve Bank of India was set up in 1935 under the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934 as a private shareholders bank. Initially, its objective was, as the preamble of the Act states, what the preamble says? Preamble says to regulate the issue of bank notes and for keeping the reserves with a view to security to its advantage. Now, after the independence of the ownership of the Reserve Bank was passed on to the government, and it was assigned developmental role as well as, besides that, of regulating the financial system. The bank to the banks and the government, and regulate the activities of the banking, non-banking finance companies and the financial institutions in the country. as I have told you that okay, it's when it was from the very beginning, when it came into existence, at that time the very limited functions were given to the Reserve Bank of India. When you will read the Reserve Bank of India Act, then you will find that the Reserve Bank of India entire act is talking about how the Reserve Bank will manage its affairs, or the banking business which is expected from the Reserve Bank of India, or the banking business which is given under the Reserve Bank of India. Now, I am coming to the second part, second head, which I have told you, that let us we see that the constitutions or compositions of the Central Board of Directors. Now, you will have to appreciate our legislators when they have drafted these legislations. They have taken utmost all the view power, and they tried to make a balance between the finance departments or finance ministry and the Reserve Bank of India, and it appears from the compositions or the powers which has been conferred under this act to the Central Board of Directors. Now, the section 8 talks about that, the constitution of Central Board of Directors and local boards. The section 9 is talking about the constitution of the local boards. Let me allow to express before you, that is the section 8 of the act provides that the provisions of the composition of Central Board and terms of the office of directors, that is very important. Now, the Central Board of Directors, as the name itself indicates, that it is a composition of directors. So, all are the directors as far as concerned when they are appointed for the purpose of this act. So, subsection 1 of the section 8 says the Central Board shall consist of the following directors, namely. So, all are directors as far as concerned, that the compositions which has been taken into this. The one, a governor, and not more than 4 deputy governors to be appointed by the central government. There are only it requires the words which is given. There will be one governor according to clause A of the, and not more than 4 deputy governors to be appointed by the central government. The word is very important, that is appointed. So, the one governor will be appointed and not more than 4 deputy governors will be appointed. That means, it is not necessary that every time there will be 4 deputy governors. The central government has a power to appoint the 4 deputy governors, but he cannot go beyond that. There will only be 4 maximum, we can say, the deputy governors can be appointed. The governors has no discretion, or means the central government has no discretion to appoint more than 4. So, but it is not required that all the time that the 4 deputy governors will be there. There may be 1, there may be 2, there may be 3, there may be 4, but we cannot expect under this act, or the government has no power to exceed that limits. That is why very beautifully it is drafted that not more than 4. I am coming to that point, that why it is written in that way. Now, the clause B is talking of the 4 directors to be nominated by the central government, 1 from each of the 4 local boards and as constituted by the section 9 of the act. We will see the section 9. So, the 4 directors, the local boards has been divided into 4 the different zones, and from the every zones, the zones are divided like the eastern, western, southern, northern, like this, and from each boards there will be one directors will be nominated by the central government. The clause C is talking about the 10 directors to be nominated by the central government. The 10 directors, apart from the 10 directors, will be nominated by the central government. And the clause D is talking about 2 government officials to be nominated by the central government. Now, it is very clear that what is the compositions of the local board of directors, so, that is the central board of directors. Central board of directors consists of what? The following directors it is talking about. Who are they? The one governor. Then the second one is not more than 4 deputy governors, and the third one is that the one each from the local boards, that is the 4 local boards we have, the one each will be taken from there, and then we got the 10 directors, and finally we got the 2 government officials. Now, the positions of all these are, they are directors, because the word it is talking about that the central board of directors consists of the directors. That means, the governor, he will act as a directors, the deputy governors, they will act as a directors, then directors terms is there, and finally we are getting the 2 government officials. Now, how they will work and what are their functions, it is mentioned under section 8 subsection 2. Subsection 2 says the governor and the deputy governor shall devote their whole time to the affairs of the bank and shall receive such salaries and allowances as may be determined by the central board with the approval of the central government. Now, they are full-timer, the governor and the deputy governor, and they are entitled to get all sorts of the salaries and the allowances, and these salaries and the allowances will be determined by the central board of directors, and whatever they have decided that is subject to the approval of the central government. Further, it says provided that the central board may, in its opinion, it is necessary the public interest so to do, permit the governor or a deputy governor to undertake at the request of the central government or any state government such part-time honorary work, whether related to the purpose of this act or not, as is not likely to interfere with his duties as governor or deputy governor as the case may be. So, very beautifully that you can say the liberty has been granted or some sort of you can say the privilege has been granted to the governor and the deputy governors. Whenever the central government or the state governments or any local authorities, whoever may we feel that there is a need of the assistance or you can say the support from the governor or from the deputy governors, they can be engaged in a honorary basis subject to what? The subject to that when they are discharging their duties, they are not getting any sorts of the relief from discharging their own assignment, and the assignment means that is the reserving assignment. And further it is said, provided further that the central government may, in consultations with the bank deputy governor as the chairman of the national bank on such terms and conditions as that the government has specified. So, the deputy governor can be appointed as the chairman of the national bank with the subject to the approval of the central government. Very important thing which is mentioned under subsection 3. Subsection 3 says a deputy governor and the directors nominated under clause D of subsection 1 may attend any meeting of the central board and take part in its deliberations, but shall not be entitled to vote, provided that when the governor is for any reason unable to attend any such meeting, a deputy governor authorized by him in this behalf in writing may vote for him at that meeting. Now, let me explain this particular provisions. As I have told you that there might be the government has its own intention and he may influence the central board of directors, because the decisions which have been taken by the central board of directors that will be taken anonymously, and if there is no anonymously then it will be decided on the basis of voting. So, they are the 4 deputy governors, and these 4 deputy governors is appointed by the whom? By the central government. So, if we will see the majority, they may it will go with the 4 and the 2 government officers. They are the 6 members. If the 6 members will go in a particular part, and as far as concerned, when we are talking about the deputy governors and these 2 government officials, they may influence the decisions of the central board of directors, because they might be willing to please the government by keeping that view that to make balance in the functions of the central board of directors, so that without any kind of you can say the influence the decisions can be taken. So, that is why the voting right is not given to these the directors that is the deputy governors and the 2 government officials, those who are appointed as the directors under clause D, they have no right to vote. But in absence of the governor, whoever may be the governor is assigned in his place to do that work in writing, so he can cast the vote during that meeting. Why? Because he is not casting that vote in his own, it is he is casting that vote in favor of the governor. Now, subsection 4 says the governor and the deputy governor shall hold the office for such term not exceeding 5 years as the central government may when appointing them, and shall be eligible for reappointment. The very beautifully, as I have told you, that you will have to appreciate the legislature as far as concerned, the drafting of the provisions of the central board of directors under the Reserve Bank of India Act. Now see, when we are reading this particular subsection, it says the governor and deputy governor shall hold the office for such term not exceeding 5 years as the central government may when appointing them, and shall be eligible for reappointment. So very clearly mentioned that it is the maximum period which is being given. It is not necessary that they will be appointed for that, but the central government cannot exceed that, the 5 years period. When he is appointing, that generally we are talking about the governors or the deputy governors, they will be appointed or they will hold their office for the period of 5 years. But it is not compulsory or it is not necessary as far as the provisions which he meant at the time of appointing, that the central government may mention from this date to this date, and this date to that date when I am talking about, that period will not exceed the 5 years. So the maximum time limit which has been given as far as for the holding of the office by the governor or the deputy governors, that is the 5 years, as if it is mentioned in, or that the less than that. There is a provisions for the reappointment. If the government is satisfied with the functions of the governor or the deputy governors, they can be reappointed, but their period cannot be exceed the 5 years. A director nominated under clause C of subsection 1 shall hold the office of a period of 4 years and thereafter until his successors shall have been nominated. As far as concerned, the 10 directors which they are appointed under clause C, they will hold their office for the period of 4 years. And in the same way, a director, but as far as concerned the clause D, the 2 government officials, they will continue their office with the pleasure of the government. That is why, as I have told you, that with the pleasure of the government when we are talking about, that might be the reason they had not given an opportunity to cast the vote. There chances that they may try to please the government because their positions or can continue with the pleasure of the government. So it is expected, or you can say that presumptions can be made they will not go against the government. That might be the reason to make balance or impartial the functions of the Central Board of Directors. These directors, those who are appointed under clause D as a government official, they have not given an opportunity to cast the vote when they are deciding any matter. Further, subsection 5 says, no act or proceedings of the board shall be questioned on the ground merely for the existence of any vacancy in or any defect in the constitution of the board. Now, very important provisions that, as I have told you, the Reserve Bank will not stop its works. And if there is any kind of the vacancy lies, as I have told you, because the word is there are not more than 4 deputy governors. So might be the government appointed only the 2 deputy governors. So we cannot say that there are the vacancies are there, and in absence of that, it cannot be said or any decisions which have been taken that cannot be questioned in any fora. Finally, section 7 says, a retiring director shall be eligible for renominations. Whoever may be leaving their office, they are entitled for the reappointment. Now, the very important provisions that which have been made under section 9 of the Act, which is talking about the constitutions of the local boards. Let me tell you before reading these provisions, the local board plays a very significant role, particularly if you will see the Reserve Bank of India needs some sort of, you can say, the assistance to find out what are the lacunas, or you can say somewhere what are the things which have to be improved, and the local board is playing a very significant role. And as I have told you, that is why the local board has been divided in the 4 parts, and it is divided, the countries throughout the country is divided in the 4 parts: eastern, western, northern and the southern. So section 9 deals about the local boards, their constitutions and functions. It is a very small sections. Subsection 1 says, a local board shall be constituted for each of 4 areas specified in the first schedule, and shall consist of 5 members to be appointed by the central government to represent, as far as possible, territorial and economic interest and the interest of the cooperative and indigenous bank. As we have already discussed that at the present time, the cooperative bank are playing very significant role. At the same time, there is a requirement of the promotion of the indigenous bank. For that purpose, this assignment is given to the local board. The local board will take care of it. As the section 9 subsection 1 very clearly mentioned, the local board consists of the 5 members, and how they will work. So it is given as subsection 2. It says, the members of the local board shall elect from among themselves one person to be the chairman of the board. So, the out of the 5 members, what they will do? They will elect themselves. There is no central government will not nominate, or the central government will not appoint as my question that who would be the chairman. So, the chairman will be elected by themselves, the members will elect themselves. Every member of local board shall hold office for a term of 4 years and thereafter until his successor shall have been appointed and shall be eligible for reappointment. So, the term of the office of the members under subsection 2, subsection 3 of the section 9, it is talking about they will hold their office for the period of 9 years, that is the 4 years. But at the same time we find that if their time is over, the 4 years, they will not vacate their office, they will continue to how long? As no one is succeeding his office. So, until his successor shall have been appointed and shall be eligible for reappointment. The person is eligible for the reappointment. And subsection 4, finally it says, a local board shall advise the central board on such matters as may be generally or specifically referred to and shall perform such duties as the central government may delegate to it. So, that is the assignment which has been given by the central board of directors to the local board will act accordingly. And as I mentioned that the one assignment which is already mentioned under the at the time of the compositions of this the central board of directors, it is talking about that the central board to represent for what they will do as far as possible territorial and economic interest and the interest of the cooperative and indigenous bank. Now, what kind of the banking business can be done, because it is mentioned under section 3 of the act at the time of the constitutions of the Reserve Bank of India, that the Reserve Bank of India not only see the monetary affairs of this country, but it will engage them in itself and the banking business which is required under this act. So, I am not going to discuss in details because it is not permissible. So, only I would like to mention one very important thing, that the banking business of Reserve Bank of India, as far as concerned that when we are talking about the banking business in my next lecture, I will deliver that what are the banking business, how, or we can say the similar kind of the banking business is interested in the Reserve Bank of India also. So, the section 7 of the Reserve Bank of India describes the business which the bank may transact. It says, the bank shall be authorized to carry on and transact the several kinds of business hereinafter specified, namely, subsection 1 says, the accepting of money on deposit without interest from and the collection of money for the central government, the state government, the local authorities, banks and any other person. Besides this, main business of the Reserve Bank of India is also authorized all sorts of business as any commercial banks are engaged. Now, let me tell you that this first subsection, as we have already discussed that what are the banking functions. So, when we are talking about what are the banking functions, the primary functions we have discussed that to accept deposits from the public, and the second thing is that to invest and lend that money, and the third thing is that to return that. The same kind of functions has been granted to the Reserve Bank of India, and it appears from reading section 17 as subsection 1. Again I am repeating it, the accepting of money on deposit without interest from and the collection of money for the central government, the state government, the local authorities, the banks and any other person. Now, let me tell you that the Reserve Bank is entitled to accept deposits from any person, that is very important. But in the practice that the people are not preferred, or you can say that it is nowhere it is mentioned as functions in this act, but it is general functions is not doing by the Reserve Bank of India, but the Reserve Bank of India have that power that he can accept deposits from the any other persons. And when we were talking about the any other persons, means we people are also included under the provisions of this act. But if you go through the information which is available in the internet of the Reserve Bank of India portal, then you will find that only one person's accounts will be opened as a general. In remaining cases, we find that the central, it is working for the central government, it is working for the state government, it is working for the local authorities, it is working for the banks, and it is as far as concerned that any other persons, it is not there. So, as far as concerned the banking business, all kinds of banking business is doing, it is doing banking business for the central government, it is doing business for the state governments, it is doing business for the banks itself. So, in that way we find that every kind of the banking, discounting, collecting, whatever the government requires, like the commercial banks, what kind of business it discharge, which we will discuss in the latter part. The similar kind of, you can say, the business is described under section 17 of the Act, and at the same time the lending or giving loans and advances to the banks, to the government, that is also mentioned under section 18 of the Act. But I am not going to that part, I am going to the very important aspects of the Reserve Bank of India that I would like to touch, the functions of the Reserve Bank of India. As the central bank of the country, Reserve Bank of India perform both traditional functions of a central bank and variety of promotional and developmental functions. So, we can divide the functions as the central functions of the Reserve Bank of India, then the promotional and developmental functions of the bank. Now, when we are talking about the central banking functions, the Reserve Bank, as we have seen under section 3 itself, the objective of the establishment of the Reserve Bank of India, that was the issue of the bank notes. Now, so the Reserve Bank is not issuing authority. The currency of our country consists of 1 rupee notes and coins, including the subsidiary coins issued by the government of the India and bank notes issued by the Reserve Bank of India as required by section 38 of the Reserve Bank of India Act. The government puts into circulation 1 rupee coins and notes through Reserve Bank only. RBI has the sole right to issue bank notes in India. The notes issued by Reserve Bank of India and 1 rupee notes and coins issued by the governor are unlimited in the legal tender. Now, let me explain the few things because as far as concerned the functions we are talking about, the Reserve Bank is the sole authority to have a right to issue the notes. Now, the notes we can have, we can categorize the two. One, we are talking about the currency we should have, that is the 1 rupee. Now, if you will go through the, when we are trying to distinguish the two, the currency and the bank notes. The currency and the bank notes, when we will see, then we can distinguish by the two way. The one that, as far as concerned, that the currency, the 1 rupee note that is issued by the signature of the Secretary, Finance Secretary. And you will see, if you will try to analyze, then you will find that there is no any kind of, you can say, the promise has been made under the currency. You will not find that the undertakings which has been given by the governor on behalf of the central government as far as concerned the bank notes. So, that is why the 1 rupee is our currency. Under the 1 rupee, the legal tender, when we are talking about, undertaking has not been made. So, there is no questions about the withdrawal of that legal undertaking, and that you cannot say that the 1 rupee can be demonetized, what we have experienced very recently. So, the second distinguished feature is that when we are talking about the bank notes, there is a promise made by the governor, and that promise is a legal tender that is given by the governor, Reserve Bank of India. So, that will be issued with the signature of the governor, Reserve Bank of India, that is rupees 2 onwards. But the notes we have, presently we have the rupees 2, the 5, the 10, the 20, 50, then 100, we have the 500, and it can go up to, we have 200 notes also recently we have introduced after the demonetization. And then we have 2000 rupees notes which has already we have withdrawn, and finally the Act says that there is a power which has been conferred under this Act, the value of 10,000 rupees can be issued, but as far as concerned it is decided by the government with the consultation of the Central Board of Directors. So, as far as concerned, when I am talking about the legal tender, and that is a promise, where the promise is made by the governor, RBI, Reserve Bank of India, in behalf of the central government. In every bank notes you will find that the one statement is there that I promise to pay the sum of rupees which is mentioned in that the notes. So, that is why we are calling these are the bank notes and 1 rupee is our currency note. Again, I am repeating it. In the currency notes, you will not find any kind of, you can say, the undertaking or the promise which is not made. That means that cannot be withdrawn. As far as concerned the other, that the under the power has been conferred under this act to the Reserve Bank of India. When you read the section 25, section 26, then you will find that at any time with the consultations of the either the government or by the government with the consultations of the Central Board of Directors, that the legal tender can be withdrawn of any series or of any notes at any moment, and with the notification that can be done. And as we have experienced very recently that the demonetization has taken place, it is nothing, it is only the withdrawal of the legal tender, and that provisions is already made under the Reserve Bank of India. So, one thing which I like to mention here, that the Reserve Bank of India acts as a bankers to the central and state government. According to section 20 of the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934, it is obligatory for the Reserve Bank of India to transact government's business, including the management of public debt of the central government. And section 21 requires that the central government to entrust Reserve Bank of India all its money, remittance, exchange, banking transactions in India, and particular deposit free of interest all its cash balances with the Reserve Bank of India. Now, that as far as concerned the central government cannot make any kind of the transactions with any other banks. Earlier, the central government were working with the Reserve Bank of India as well as that its agency, that the Reserve Bank agency was at that time the State Bank of India. Now, these agencies are after you can say the nationalizations, that all nationalizations banks, some sort of you can say that they are working as a part of the Reserve Bank of India. So, there is it is not confined to the State Bank of India. So, it is the section 20, it is very important, and section 21. As we are talking about it is working as a government banks. So, why? As far as concerned the central government has no choice to keep its money with the other, and the money when he is keeping with the Reserve Bank of India, the Reserve Bank India is accepting money without interest. It is not like the other commercial bank that he will give some sort of interest. He is not giving interest. So, the money, if anyone wishes to keep their money with the Reserve Bank of India, the Reserve Bank of India will not give any kind of, you can say, the interest over that deposit, as we are experiencing under the commercial bank, that commercial banks are giving, at least even if you have some credit money in your savings account, that you will get the nominal rate of interest, but there is a concept of interest. But as far as concerned that the Reserve Bank of India, there is no, the Reserve Bank of India is accepting money deposits without interest. So, section 21 requires that the central government to entrust Reserve Bank of India all its money, remittance, exchange and banking transactions in India, and in particular deposit free of interest all its cash balances with the Reserve Bank of India. Only one exemption which is given to this under section 21, that where the Reserve Bank's branch is not working or any kind of its agency is not working, in that exceptions, and the present time we do not find that, but it was written under the act at the time where the state banks were not working in the remote areas at the time. That might be the reason it was written in that way, but as far as concerned the present time we will see that they are the nationalized banks, they are working on behalf of the Reserve Bank of India. So, there is no requirement as far as concerned to keep the money for its transactions, but the provisions are there. In absence of that, if the Reserve Bank is not extending any services to any part of the country, then only the central government with the provided clause, he can keep money with the other bank. Otherwise, the Reserve Bank is not entitled to keep any kind of, you can say, the transactions or make transactions with besides, or you can say the apart the Reserve Bank of India. He has to keep with the Reserve Bank of India only. As the Reserve Bank is also known as a banker's bank, and that because it is the last resort where the bankers are facing crisis and there is no any kind of the choices available to him, they can go before the Reserve Bank of India. And the Reserve Bank of India under section 18, there is a provisions has been made to give advances with a promissory note, and the promissory note is only you can say the piece of undertaking. By giving undertaking, the bankers are entitled to get, you can say, the loan from the Reserve Bank of India for a certain period. So, that is the reason that the Reserve Bank is known as a bankers bank. The Reserve Bank of India is the bankers to the bank, that is to all commercial, cooperative and regional rural banks. The relationship with establishment established once the name of the bank is included in the second schedule of the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934, such banks are called the scheduled banks. Now, as I have told you that as a bankers bank, how it is helping and how it can be said that why we are calling the Reserve Bank as a bankers bank. The reason behind it, under sections 17 subsection 2 and subsection 3 and under section 17 subsection 4, what are the provisions are there? That is rediscounting or purchase of eligible bills, and the second one under subsection 4 of section 17, it is talking about loans and advances against certain securities. And the securities, as I have told you, that is by giving a promissory note, and as far as concerned the promissory note is only that the undertakings. So, as the bankers to the banks, the Reserve Bank of India acts as a lender of the last resort and grants accommodation to the scheduled banks in the following manner. As I have already mentioned, that is rediscounting or purchase of eligible bills and the loans and advances against certain securities. Now, besides all these main functions, one thing which before coming to the promotional and development functions, I would like to mention here that the 2-3 very important aspects which is very important. As I have discussed with you, that the sole power which has been conferred as far as concerned the issuing of banknotes. Now, when he is issuing the banknotes, then most of the time it is talking about that the controversy which arises after the demonetization. That is the reason behind it, that most of the provisions, if you will see under the Reserve Bank of India, it is written, although the power has been conferred to the central government, but that power can be exercised how? That with the consultations of the central board of directors or with the consultation of the governor. At the same time, the act in many places where it is mentioned that the Reserve Bank has a power to issue directions to the central board of directors, where that wherever he feels, or you can say they find that there is a need to take all kind of, you can say, the decisions in favor of the public interest. Now, the public interest word is very wide. It is defined or you can define it in the different way, but the public interest is taking into that to what? That to stability of monetary stability which is required for the nation, and that assignment is given to whom? That assignment is given to the Reserve Bank of India. So, the Reserve Bank of India, when he is exercising this power, then he has to see that how it can be make harmonized. There are the two regions which I like to mention here. Before coming to this point, I would like to mention one very important section, that is section 30. Which again and again I am trying to express before you that what is that? That as far as my understanding, that the cordial harmonious relationship is very essential as far as concerned that the assignment which is given to the Reserve Bank of India. If the government of India will leave alone to the Reserve Bank of India to get or to achieve the objective or assignment which is given, it is not possible. So, that is why that might be the reason that the act, when the legislature drafted this act, it is given that the same kind of, you can say, the assignment or you can say the duty lies towards the central government also. The central government, it has a power that he can issue directions in the public interest under section 7 as far as concerned the management of the affairs of the Reserve Bank of India. It is all right. But at the same time, that when we have seen that the compositions of the central board of directors, within that we find that the compositions which are there is also the balance has been made. The legislature drafted in the very beautifully, we will have to appreciate it, there is no doubt about it, that is all right. But the problems which I understand, that is the section 30. I am not saying that the section 30 has given wide powers to the Reserve Bank of India, but sometimes if there is no harmonious relations, or you can say there is a less harmonious relationship, or there is no cordial relationship between these two institutions, then it is very difficult. Why? That each and every time there may be, the government will say that the governor, have you read the section 30 of the act? That is very important. So, what are the powers which we confer to the central government of India, and that power must be there. Because we cannot live in isolation the central board of directors, that whatever they wish they can do it, but it will have to respect, and the respect is given under each and every sections of the Reserve Bank of India Act. As far as concerned that when we are talking about withdrawal of the legal tender of any series of notes, that power has been conferred. But at the same time it is mentioned that how it will be decided. Then it is said it will be decided on what? It will be decided by the consultations or with the consultation of the Central Board of Directors. As far as concerned that deciding the values of notes, what would be the notes, that is also very important. Who will do the homework? All the homework assignment is given to the Central Board of Directors. The Central Board will decide what would be the color. The Central Board of RBI will decide what would be the denominational value of the notes, which will continue. And if we find that there are some sort of, you can say, certain the wrong things is going on, then he will immediately inform to the Finance Ministry that we wish to think over it and unanimously will have to take decisions. But as my question that what happened with the demonetization, there is lots of the confusions until that the decisions came from the Reserve Bank of India. By the Supreme Court of our country. The Supreme Court of country affirmed that the decisions which has been taken, that was taken in accordance with the provisions of the Reserve Bank of India Act, where it is necessary that the central government has a power to take such kind of the decisions in the public interest. And the Supreme Court affirmed that the decisions which have been taken as my question, the demonetization of the 500 and the 1000 rupees note, so that was the Supreme Court give its verdict in favor of the government. Now, let me allow to read out the section 30 of the Reserve Bank of India Act, and section 30 talks about the powers of central government to supersede central board. That is very important. Let me allow to read out what is the provisions which he made. Section 30 says, section 30 talks about the powers of central governments to supersede central board. Subsection 1 says, if in the opinion of the central government, the bank fails to carry out any of the obligations imposed on it by or under this act, the central government may, by notification in the Gazette of India, declare the central board to be superseded, and thereafter the general superintendence and directions of the affairs of the bank shall be entrusted to such agency as the central government may determine, and such agency may exercise the powers and do all acts and things which may be exercised or done by the central board under this act. Again, I am repeating it. This provisions is very important. Section 30 talks about it, gives the powers to the central government. The central government can supersede the central board of directors. Section 30 talks about the powers of the central government to supersede central board, and subsection 1 says, if in the opinion of the central government, the bank fails to carry out any of the obligations imposed on it by or under this act, the central government may, by notification in the Gazette of India, declare that central board to be superseded, and thereafter the general superintendence and directions of the affairs of the bank shall be entrusted to such agency as the central government may determine, and such agency may exercise the powers and do all acts and things which may be exercised or done by the central board under this act. But we are very fortunate that we never experienced the Reserve Bank exercise this power, the central government exercise this power. The central government, we can expect that the central government is one of the, you can say, the composite components as far as concerned to achieve the objectives that he cannot, neither the Reserve Bank can do alone or the central government can do alone. There is a requirement of the cordial relationship between these two institutions. So, we are very fortunate that in our country the central government has not exercised this power. But the powers which we confer, that central government at any time when he find that according to their expectation the central board is not performing, that means the central government, if he thinks that the central board of directors is failed to get the, you can say, the objectives of this act, whenever he find or whenever he thinks that the central government thinks that the central board of directors is not in a position to achieve that objective immediately, that he can withdraw or he can supersede the central board of directors. When he is superseding the central board of directors, as I have told you that the assignment which is given to the Reserve Bank of India, that cannot be a stop. So, he will continue that. How it will continue? That he will appoint an agency, the agency whichever he thinks fit, and that agency will exercise all the powers which he will confer to the central board of directors. That is very beautifully. But if we will see that if the central government is exercising this power, then that might be that if he dislikes some of the members of the central board of directors, that might be the reason, or they might have given some sort of, you can say, the decisions which is not in favor of, that is particularly not in favor of the government, it is not against the nation. It is in favor of the nation, but it is against the will of the government or the pleasure of the government. In the circumstances, they might be the arbitrarily he can exercise. So, to regulate that arbitrary, the subsection 2 is very important to read out here. It says, when an action is taken under this section, the central government shall cause a full report of the circumstances leading to such action and of the action taken laid before the parliament at the earliest possible opportunity, and in any case within 3 months from the issue of the notification superseding the board. That is very important, that when the government is exercising the power which has been conferred as my consent to supersede the central board of directors under section 30 of the act, then they will have to mention the records, what are the reasons behind it, and that has to be put before the parliament as early as possible whenever they got the opportunity. But it is talking about, in any case it will not exceed 3 months. That means the suspension period which is given under this act, that initially that can be the 3 months, and that 3 months period can be work will be discharged by any of the agency which the central government assigned. That provisions has been made. So, that the things which I would like to mention here, that might be the reason that sometime we can say what we have experienced, that some of the incidents which took place in our country, as I have told you, the central government never exercised that power, but might be the persons those who were there, persons those who were disliked by the government, they might have left their positions and the government appointed as their wishes. That might be the reason that we have experienced that the 2-3 governors they have resigned, and it appears from the newspaper that there were some sort of, you can say, the disagreements with the government, and that might be the reason they left their office. So, whatever may be, but we are very fortunate, as I am telling you, that the central government never exercised this power. We never supersede our central board of directors. Now, the last part of the things which I like to mention before you, that is the promotion and development functions. As I mentioned that the Reserve Bank, the duty which has been assigned under the you can say the section 3 of the act or the preambles, it is not confined. The Reserve Bank of India nowadays it is doing some of the promotional work also. Since independence, the range or the Reserve Bank functions has been widened to include the various promotional and developmental functions performed by the Reserve Bank of India. What are these? Okay. The Reserve Bank of India has been instrumental in establishing the variety of financial institutions in the country. For example, the Industrial Development Bank of India, the National Housing Bank, etc. has been done by the Reserve Bank of India. Then the Reserve Bank of India has provided the guidance, help and directions to the banks, improving the working and strengthening the financial position. And the third kind of, you can say, the promotional work which has been done by the Reserve Bank of India, or you can say the Reserve Bank of India is involved to improve the customer service in banks. Reserve Bank of India has recently set up the independence body called the Banking Codes and Standards Board of India. So, in that way, the Reserve Bank of India playing a very significant role, and that might be our Reserve Bank of India is successfully playing its role. That may be the reason, as I have stated, the section 30, it never comes before or it was not exercised by the central government of India, and the Reserve Bank is working the full-fledged, and that might be the reason that our monetary stability is continuing, it is improving. With that hope that the Reserve Bank will continue its functions in the better way, and it will achieve its objective which has been set under section 3 of the act, as well as the other assignment which is given under this act as a banking business, that is performed in a right way. Thank you very much.